So I'm Jaeden. I'm primarily a professional services engineer, but obviously moving into AI and automation as well, primarily around Power Automate, AI being as well Copilot driven, but we do have experience with Anthropic and the OpenAI variants as well as things outside of Power Automate, so the large Power Platform, and even the Microsoft Foundry side of things. Yeah, pretty excited to see what we can trigger for you guys in terms of what you need.
Yeah. And we're going to show some real examples that we use internally, as well as some of the things that we are allowed to share from some of the client work that we do. Obviously, there's a lot of this commercially sensitive, but we'll show you some real examples of what that looks like. So just anyone who's just come in the last minute or two, if you have any questions, you can email Casey down there in the bottom left, casey@centurion.com.au, or up in the top Q&A. Try not to use the chat because it's general chat, but if it doesn't matter, Casey is on hand. Casey works at Centurion as well as one of our sort of growth ops people, and she will collect some of those questions and we'll pose those to Jaeden at the end. No question is a bad question. A lot of this can get pretty technical, so if it's a really basic question, don't be afraid to ask it and we'll answer that at the end. So without further ado, let's get stuck in. What do you think, Jaeden? Just quick intro into like who is Centurion. Some of you obviously on the list know who we are because you're clients. Others are not. So we're one of Australia's sort of leading TSPs or MSPs, depends which term you want to use, a major service provider or technology service provider. We service a lot of like high risk, I would say, and high security firms around the country. So law firms, accounting firms, financial firms. And because of that pedigree, obviously we have to have some of the highest standards of security and data governance and the like when we're deploying these, which is a really good stress test of some of the AI and automation services that we render to clients. So without further ado, that's kind of what we are. Let's get stuck into the first thing, which is why automation matters. The reason for today's whole topic really is last month we were down in Sydney doing an AI event there for some people, and just off Martin Place, and most of the questions were around automation. How do I automate this? How do I consolidate my data to then automate this task? And we thought, okay, let's get a bit deeper into this topic, hence today's webinar. Over to you, Jaeden. Really basic question. How would you answer this?
Yeah, so why automation matters, it actually covers off a lot of the scenarios that can't be covered by AI, and there are surprisingly a lot of them. AI has a very specific use case in organizations at the moment, and automation fills that gap. We actually quite often find that starting the AI journey first will bring up a lot of, well, what can we make this? Can we make that? And they are quite commonly automations, not AI agents. So again, that's kind of what we're going to have a chat about today.
Yeah, especially the difference, which we'll get to in just a minute, because I think we lump them both into the same thing, but they are kind of separate, but there's crossover, obviously. So what do we have coming up next?
So basically what this session is going to cover. So again, what automation agents actually are, because there is a bit of a difference there, but like you say, an overlap at the same time. They are lumped under the same, they're different categories under the same banner, where they can deliver real-time savings, some practical examples from real teams, and how to get started as well. Sorry, John, you're muted.
Sorry, yeah, we were just thinking about this, like which ones we show you. So we're going to take a couple of examples that obviously come up a lot in questions, like basically the top 4 or 5, and trying to show you as much as we can. But obviously a lot of this is like pretty specific to each organization. So if it's a bit light on the visuals, so that's kind of why. But the outcome is kind of what we're all looking for. So
I mean, it's also about, so automations can be quite, not very thrilling to watch, I suppose, because it's an in and an out and then, it's all done. But yeah, we'll do our best to try and portray what's actually happening here.
Okay, let's go to the next one. So what is automation? I think basic question. We'll get to what is AI and agents after this, but in a nutshell, how would you describe it?
Yeah, so like I said, automation kind of fills the gap that AI leaves. Basically, it is a task that is it executes, and it runs through a set of very specific rules for a specific outcome. So there's not a lot of variation in it. It just needs to basically do the things and then produce this output, essentially.
Okay, we've got 3 examples there. So key data from a PDF or image into, so we do that internally, don't we? The invoice processing. So we get invoices via PDF.
That's quite a common one.
Many different things. Yeah, churns that and then does something in Xero or whatever accounting system that we have, correct?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And then obviously another really, all three of these are quite common in terms of what we would normally see, but reviewing uploaded documents as well and flagging missing information and then routing exceptions for human review. And also intelligently summarizing records, notes and correspondence before the next workflow step. These examples are also, and this is where the gray area kind of starts to set in, you can actually use AI within these workflows as well. And that's where if you've got a workflow that has variation in some of its data that it has to work with, that's where you would leverage AI. But obviously we'll cover that off.
Perfect. Yeah. So outside those sort of standard formats, it kind of adds a bit of context on the fly. So okay, what do we got next? So agents to compare, AI agents or agentic agents. How does that differ?
Yeah, so these they kind of generate answers. Like that is what we quite commonly see, pointed at this set of information, generate answers for people based off of that. But they can also interpret and decide on next steps, carry out actions across different connected systems as well. So they've got a little more nuance in them. As we keep mentioning, it's where there's variation in a lot of data, things that a static rule can't really interpret or interact with. That's where an agent will fill that void.
Yeah, okay, great. I like it. You're kind of empowering them to make your own decisions as opposed to following a set of standard rules, which is what more automation is.
Cool. Yeah, exactly. And obviously some of the examples around that, as you can see on the screen, is understanding instructions in plain language. So where you're just typing them out in your plain language, operating when triggered or when asked, following a process and making limited decisions based on that. It still helps to reduce admin overhead, repetitive tasks and that sort of thing as well. Again, a little bit of crossover.
Great, I love it. Okay, so on to the next one. Where I think this is where we show the crossover, correct, between the two. So obviously we mentioned before there's a bit of an overlap between the two. Explain to me sort of where that overlap is and what's one on side and what's on the other side.
Yeah. So obviously, when you're looking at agents, we'll start with agents. That's quite commonly where a lot of our clients will start. Is they begin their Copilot journey, they start to build out these agents, and then they think, oh, okay, well, there's these tasks that we now want these agents to fulfill. When in actual fact, they are probably best suited for an automation because they need to be triggered. While agents can be triggered, if you've got that static set of rules around it, it's best to be in automation. So, looking at what's on the screen at the moment, a good example of an automation is taking information from a PDF and transferring it into a specific spreadsheet into the cells where it needs to go. So we can define those rules based on what's coming out of that PDF. Whereas an agent will be as we mentioned, goal-orientated, so proactively drafting replies and sending them, drafting replies, getting human review, approval, send, that kind of workflow. The nuance being that the drafting has to be or sound a specific way, so you don't have just templated outputs that an automation would typically follow. The AI is just outputting natural language. And some really good examples out in the market at the moment are obviously any of the co-works, so Copilot or Claude co-work, and then things like the research agent in Copilot as well. Any of those Copilot functions that you do see are good examples. So where agents differ from an automation is they can plan steps, but then also choose the next action. So they'll have a series of actions that they can choose from. They'll know that they've gotten to this stage. And then they have to choose this action based on the output. And then they can adapt to the changing inputs and context as well. So for instance, if you've got natural language coming in, so it can identify nuance and keywords and things like that, and pick its action based off of what it can see. And it's better suited to unstructured or multi-step work, essentially. Whereas the automation on the left-hand side, you've got, it's very process-driven, rule trigger events, structured, repeatable tasks, which sounds easy to build out, but you'll see in a moment that it's actually a little bit more complicated than that.
Because there's so many different systems, isn't it? It's like, depending on the automation, can affect like many different layers of systems, which makes the complexity pretty high.
It's actually creating the rules themselves. You still do need quite a lot of technical knowledge around retrieving the data and then sorting through it and building that rule out in a way that the automation can follow step by step. Obviously, the overlap is going to be saving time and reducing manual effort. They both kind of do that. That is inherently why they're under the one banner. They improve consistency. I would argue that automation improves consistency more. So again, that is another consideration that you would need to have. If you need absolute consistency out of a process, it's an automation. If consistency is, it's okay if here or there something kind of changes a little bit, or it's needs a human review, then it's an agent. And obviously they both work within specific guardrails that you set when you're creating these.
Yeah, like so, look, a lot of clients, we start with agents, we sort of dilly-dally around, and we figure out, oh, there's this thing, repeatable process that, the agent is doing a lot of. Why don't we create an automation out of that? And then we don't need to use an agent. So that's kind of the natural progression a lot of the time.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so moving along, how do we get started with this kind of thing? Obviously we're doing a lot of this work internally ourselves, and each week we kind of track how many hours of manual labor that is freeing up in our existing team to do sort of higher level labor and more strategic sort of work. Talk me through these numbers.
Yeah, of course. So we obviously recommend by starting really, really small. The hours will add up, and that's what you'll find. It also helps you from starting off feeling overwhelmed. If you're looking at the bigger picture straight away, it's too much. So with either automations or agents, we really do recommend starting off with tasks that just save you 2 to 5 minutes a day. The more of those you get, the more of an accumulation you'll have as well. Not only that, but it means the process to build out, say, an automation for a 5-minute task is far shorter. There's much less involved. And again, that comes back to removing that overwhelming nature of building these out. So you can do more of them with less of an overwhelming overhead, and then it will accumulate. So begin with one practical use case and scale from there. That's fairly obvious. What I actually like to recommend is throughout your day, as you're completing a task, again, as small as it can possibly be, just sit and think, like, is this something that could be automated? And would that save me time if it was? Or would I have to get involved anyway? Because quite often, if you still have to get involved, there may not be so much of a saving in it, but you never know. Okay, so measure impact from day one.
Sorry, I'm just reading the starting points as well. So like an example of like a common way to start, just to dip your toes in the water. We've got a list down here on the bottom left here of meeting agents in box management. Are there any of those that sort of stick out that get frequently requested from you?
Yeah, it's quite often reporting summaries. Generating things in Excel as well is really common, and that's come a really long way. You have a lot of choice about how you build out Excel automations, whether that be through agents or an automation itself. So those two are probably the biggest ones at the moment. And again, they start really small. So you say 5 minutes here or there. Yeah. A lot of the common pitfalls that we see as well are permissions and security. So that's something that you have to take into consideration anyway, and it is good practice to do that. Don't just go, we want to build this thing, well, let's give it access to everything that it needs. Sit and review if there are blocks in place, why are there blocks in place, and how can you safely allow this process to occur rather than just opening it straight up. There's also the unclear ownership issue. So you typically don't want to have an automation per person. You would have all of that coordinated out of an account, and then obviously we would assist, and then there'd be specific contacts within the organisation that understand that automation, where to find it, where to find the help for it, and where to collect the feedback for it as well.
Great. Okay, love it. That sounds good. So we've got some examples coming up, but what should we talk about next? Okay, yeah, documents. I mean, this is something I use all the time. This is really good. So, example, reviewing a legal contract via PDF comes in, can be really helpful there. Even I've got a financial report and I can extract out like just the little the figures out of that and shove it into Excel. I like that feature as well. But yeah, run me through this one here.
Yeah. This is by far the most common automation that we see and have requests for, and that's anything to do with document intake and triage. So simply put, you can have an automation that reads text out of a source and then takes that and puts it into an output, so destination. We can extract key details from all of that as well. So you've got invoice processing. There are obviously other things that you can do as well around, say, one that recently done was like BAS statements as well. You can take information out of that and put it into another system so that it's ready to go. Takes that human out of it. Although anything that you do kind of automate, we still recommend having someone check over it, especially for a period of time. But you'll find that the results are faster turnarounds for these sort of admin overhead automations. You will actually have better data quality because they're focused on catching those edge cases rather than the entire front to end process itself. And that's kind of that last point there. The staff focus on exceptions, not on admin. Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. Cool. Okay, so kind of a manual review process, but automation taking a lot of the slack of that day-to-day repetitive strain, which is really good. So yeah, I mean, I use that one all the time. So really good example. Okay, what's next?
So a good example of an agent here is basically a helper agent. So policies and procedures, quite often they're stored in SharePoint. There's quite a lot of them. They get updated on schedule or frequently.
Or so an intranet. You can have, a lot of time there's like an intranet sort of thing, Confluence or whatever, and people are always saying to me like, oh, how do I do that? And they're like, oh, go to Confluence and you'll find it there. I'm like, yeah, where? So I really like this agent because it sort of makes that discovery process so much easier.
Yeah, that's right. You can literally just have a little agent that sits inside Copilot or Teams that, say, new staff members can chat to and say, oh, I want to put in some leave. What's the policy around that? What's the procedure? And they can just chat to this agent about that. And it's all based on the information that you've got stored in SharePoint. If you update that in the back end, the agent immediately has that updated information. If you remove something, it immediately removes that from its output as well. So it's really, really useful. And it leverages that natural language that we keep speaking about as well. So it's not necessarily just a robot output. It can feel much more natural to speak with and to get the information that you do need out of it.
Yeah, so this is a really good use case if you're running a department and you get lots of questions from some subordinates or your team about the same thing all the time. You can just refer them to the agent instead of having to ask you. So if you're away or on leave or unavailable or in a meeting, they can answer their own question without having to come and bug you, which I think any manager really loves. I think most teams could definitely use this one.
Definitely.
Okay, and this is a good one, isn't it? Yeah, everyone loves has to use Excel to different degrees for different things, but it's improved a lot, hasn't it? I mean, I know we were chatting maybe a couple of webinars ago on our AI webinars. I think the first one talking about it's going to be released in November last year. That was pushed back a bit, and then it's improved a lot since in the last 4 months or 5 months.
Yeah, so I mean, we refer to it here as agent mode for Excel. It's actually changed a little bit now. It is just Copilot for Excel. They've rolled it all in now to make it less confusing. So all the functionality of agent mode is now just built in. But it's really, really good. So this is a really good example of a blend between an automation and an agent itself, or an AI agent, I should say. What can do, so it can build formulas and pivots, you can create charts and dashboards, explain trends, all of the normal stuff that you would expect to be able to do out of AI with Excel, except this now has the ability to edit your spreadsheet based on the instructions you give it. So in the example I've got here, and this is a video, we're going to take the data from a supplier invoice and we're going to populate the relevant rows in this Excel spreadsheet. So you could do this with an automation and have it all happen in the background, but you don't have to anymore. So you could have this spreadsheet open, you could just attach the files that you need to, give it the instructions and let it run. And we're going to just let that run now here. So I'm going to attach this PDF so we can upload images and files, or we can add work content that already exists in SharePoint or OneDrive, for example. So this is just a generated invoice from a supplier for some IT goods. You can see there that it has been attached. And what's going to happen is Copilot's going to read this spreadsheet. You'll even be able to see some colourful rainbow boxes appear as well. So that's a good indication of where Copilot is situated within the spreadsheet in terms of its working out. Depending on what you ask it to do, it can be quite a long process or quite a short process. I've sped this up a little bit in the middle, but it does give you an output as well based on what it's found, so what it's filled in, what actually did match. So it'll be able to give you an accurate output about the information that it's found for that spreadsheet. And you can see there it's done a pretty good job of taking that information just out of a PDF, just a flat PDF file, and then populate that spreadsheet.
Love it. That's very useful. And obviously then you can apply, formulas or any other sort of secondary steps that you want to do depending on how you instruct that agent after that. And
you could generate insights out of that, although you probably wouldn't out of an invoice agent like that. Another side of this that we don't see often enough is the fact that you can bring in outside information as well. So again, you wouldn't use this for an invoice example, but if you're bringing data from a PDF into a spreadsheet, you can actually tell it to then go online and pull through, say, the Australian average for these figures as well. Put that into some different columns so that you don't have to source that. It'll go through and do that and pull that in for you. And
like
it'll
ABS,
even create the columns.
Like ABS data or something like that as a bit of a comparison to averages. Yeah, I like it.
Yeah.
Very cool. Okay, very underutilized as well because it's such a new thing and it has been evolving the last couple of months. So I think it's definitely the point now where that agent mode in Excel is actually quite robust. So if you've got some outdated criticism from people from last year, definitely check it out again because it's improving every single day.
It's not technically in Frontier anymore, which used to be their testing platform. It's a full release now, so it is much better. Yeah.
Great. Okay, and then that brings us to intelligence agents, which is very interesting. Run me through what this is.
There's a lot of different ways you can build these. So this is where it's probably easiest to seek some independent assistance with these, just because they can be a little bit more complicated to build out. But these are essentially agents that will be able to pull information from the web and do something with them. So a really good example is the Copilot Intel that I built for myself. I found that I was spending hours a week just trawling through Copilot News. Late last year, they were releasing new news every 2 to 3 days. It was a lot. So I built this particular agent that will kick off on a schedule, pull all that information from official sources, RSS feeds. It would be able to summarize and dedupe that, so we're not pulling multiple news items of the same kind or the same text or the same announcements. And then it would be able to draft blog posts. So it could give me a weekly blog post of all the news that happened that week. But it also had an agent attached to that so that I could chat to it and ask it more about those news, the news items that it pulls through. As I mentioned, it saves me probably an hour or two a week. It's probably more late last year. It's slowed down a little bit. Less noise. I don't have to worry about going out online now and looking through all these articles and pulling through what I need and then looking through another one and sort of telling myself, oh, well, I don't need that one, move on to the next one. Or that's over now. I don't have to do that.
Yeah, so if you've got a newsletter, for example, whether it's internal or an external newsletter, that's a really good use case for something like this to build this out and to automate that whole sort of data collection synthesis sort of process. Yeah. Then gives you a whole thing of things, list of things you could talk about that you could then prioritize, cut out, and then sort of write into a longer form content. So obviously newsletters, briefing, industry briefing, really good for anything like that. I know one of our, are we going to mention the thing that Sophia does with the HR? Because she's in an HR role. That's coming next. Okay, cool. I'm jumping to that one, but it's a kind of iteration of that, really, isn't it? But it's a bit of a two-step process. So, but before we get there, this is kind of what that looks like, right, in a map.
Yeah, so this is kind of the flow map, I suppose, of that one that I had built. So again, it's scheduled task driven, so I don't have to prompt it, and it will kick off basically a daily task and a weekly task. We have an agent in there, which is the runner agent itself, which overlooks the entire execution. It's a lightweight agent to save money, uses a smaller model. And then it's got the intelligence pipeline as well. So it moves down into there. Once it's executed, there's a script that will pull the information from the RSS feeds or the news announcements. It will filter and classify them. So again, relevance, because there's stuff in there it's Copilot, kind of Copilot news, but not. So we strip all of that out. We dedupe it. So I'm not getting double ups, triple ups of news that I've already pulled through. And then stage detection as well. So this is for features that have reached testing versus production. So if something goes from testing to production, it will actually pull that through again for me so that I know that that's happened. And then off to the side there, you can see that at that point is where I will get a notification through my agent that there's new intelligence ready for me to sift through. And then I can have a chat to it as well. But beyond that, if I ignore that chat notification from the agent, it will still go through and write the documents for it. So it does a daily news digest, which it stores for me and I can have a read through at the end of every day, or it does a roundup at the end of the week, plus a blog post as well. And the outcome is that I can just basically copy and paste that blog post with that news after proofreading it to make sure it's got all of the news I want in it. So yeah, it saves a fair bit of time.
Yeah, great. So this is kind of like an idea of like a workflow map. So, if we went to a client or one of the first steps, you go, okay, what do you want to automate? We would sort of draft out this like step-by-step process and then technically we then implement for you. But one of the first things you do is that sort of like technical workflow. Is that what you would call that, or that diagram? Or?
Yeah,
okay.
Definitely.
Great.
Definitely.
Okay, so this is visualizing sort of what we have to do in the back end to make it all run, and see that nice clean output at the end. So it is a bit complex, but that's why you need technical people. So that's great to see that one. What else do we have here for other departments, maybe?
Yeah, so for in terms of other use cases, exactly what we can see on the screen here. So we've got legislation updates by state and nationality if it's publicly available, not hidden behind a login screen or something like that. That is a common pitfall. There are some workarounds though. HR, so policy and compliance changes, obviously. Anything around marketing for social media, algorithm updates and things like that. Quite common with LinkedIn, to be honest. Accounting, tax changes and exemptions, and things like that. Still, I would say also policy changes, operations, so supplier pricing and compliance changes. Lots and lots of options.
Yeah, great. That is good. And a lot of those are public sources anyway. So, if it's a government department, obviously, by virtue, they're going to be publicly available. So, it's just probably like internal industry association or subscription ones that you would then have to find a workaround for. So, that's great. Okay, great. And then, so this is the thing I was mentioning before with Sophia. So, as an example, we have a head of HR, Sophia, internally at Central. She's awesome. And she was basically just collecting articles and downloading them via PDF, whether a web article or a downloadable PDF should do the same thing, dump them into a SharePoint folder. And then what you do is you set up sort of an agent around that she could use to query. So she created the repository of the data, and then the agent she would use to, query when that thing came up. Correct me if I'm wrong here, but what else did I miss on that automation?
No, that pretty much covers it. I believe it will also identify any changes based on online sources as well.
Okay, so there's that balance and check. Perfect. Okay, in case she hasn't downloaded something yet. Okay, so I think it's a really good thing if you're working in something that's a changeable industry, which HR is a pretty fluid legal environment, and obviously in law as well, same sort of things applies. AI and privacy in particular is quite changeable right now if you're following certain people, which I am. So very useful for those kind of things. So I love it. Really good use case and very simple to set up, that one.
Yeah, very simple.
Right. Okay, and what else do we have? So talking about automations, there's probably three that you are privy to that you probably haven't realized are automations, which you definitely use like every week or every month. So these are top three from Michael, one of our head sort of automation engineers as well internally at Centrion. So run me through these three.
Yeah. So obviously automated shipping tracking. So we can take information from a provider form, and that can be agnostic, and then basically take it from start to finish in terms of its shipping tracking. So as you can see there, we track the record, automated 6-hourly checks as well, and that can be more frequent, it can be less frequent depending on the updates that you need, and then a ticket update and a notification on delivery. So the ticket update being that it updates the ticket on our system so that we don't have to go through and check the provider portal to see where this delivery is at. We get the updates in the system that we're working in day to day, so we don't have to flick around and go and find it. And then an actual notification, whether that be email based or something like that, once it is delivered, we still get that update in the ticket as well.
Yeah, and then subscription renewals. I mean, we get these all the time, don't we? Any platform that we're signed up to, anything for payment. I know my inbox is full of these, so obviously that's used a lot.
Yeah, so again, the same principle here is we take details that are usually within other systems or other notifications, and we can filter them through our ticketing system. So this one actually checks on the actual expiries and when they're coming up. When it's within a certain window, it will create the ticket, and it goes through an approval process, and then it will auto close or escalate. So we have a full audit as well. So it makes that process much easier rather than getting the notification and then someone just having to basically act on that notification. We actually have a full audit trail and an approval process as well built into that.
Yeah, great. And then the last one, billable time. So obviously, if you're a consultant or a contractor, which I'm very familiar with, you're getting inbound emails, phone calls, requests here and there out of your management system or customer management system. So you can create automations around calculating how much each one of those is then a billable segment. Yeah. So obviously lawyers
and you can see there just how much time is saved.
Yeah.
Just on each of those, especially the last one with being 20 to 25 hours a month. That's quite a hefty one.
Yeah, so rather than having to input manually your time sheets, which is kind of the common request, isn't in agency land, it just happens automatically. Is that what you mean here, or a combination of both?
Yeah, okay. Sort of like that. Yeah, it's a bit of an automation of both. Yeah.
Yeah, great. Okay, I love that one. Really cool. Okay, so we have a couple of questions. What else do we have? Okay, so here's kind of what they look like. So again, there's a bit of a diagram of the workflow in the back-end systems that we use. We use a number of different systems depending on what would work for you and what the security implications are. But it looks pretty technical there.
Yeah, that's right. So I mean, it actually looks easy to do from a technical standpoint, but then you also need to consider that each one of these actions or nodes also has a certain level of programmatic coding behind it or instructions that then needs to go and do something else. So the map lays it out somewhat nicely, I suppose, but then there is all sorts of additional context in the background as well that needs to happen. Each one of these actions needs to be planned out and understood so that you can move on to the next one. Sometimes it's even a process of looking at it from the end and working your way backwards depending on what the workflow is. So if we're looking at an even more complex one here, we've got the subscription renewal automation, which was the second one on that list that we had open before. So it is getting a little bit more complex there, and the choices that it needs to make based on what it finds. And then we've also got the billable time automation here. So again, this one flows quite simply. So this one is a top-down flow with a choice at the end, basically. And a choice in the middle as well. So if you compare that to the subscription-based one, there's obviously going to be, given the subscription has an approval process built in, we actually need to kind of consider that as its own automation, I suppose you could say, like a subflow. So it needs to know what to do based on the decisions of the approval process. Where is that approval going? Are they available or not? Does it need to be escalated? All those sorts of choices need to be considered.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, we got some questions flowing in as well. So before we get there, which is literally the next slide, we've got a couple of services that we provide clients depending on how mature you are around this journey to the next sort of era of business operations, from that sort of very initial AI readiness assessment where we sort of see the appetite and alignment between key stakeholders of the organization, do a bit of stress test on where you are in that journey, to a specific training, which obviously we're just doing having last week, Jaeden, with a client, or the week before in Sydney. So we've just shown some of the basics around there, depending on sort of the level of maturity of the organization. So they can be internal, or we've got a public one coming up soon too, which I think is on another slide in Brisbane. And then, yeah, we have Copilot Quick Start program, which is sort of more of an implementation-based series that goes on for a quarter, and then a fractional AI, or more of an AI advisor, an automation advisor, which is a really key person to have if you can't afford to have a permanent hire. Having that sort of semi-permanent advisor in the back end, someone like Jaeden, that can sort of answer questions, triage things, troubleshoot, and just use as a really knowledgeable reference, go-to person to give you some really good advice on where to go. And of course, as part of all this is security and data governance, obviously, which is another two products that we have. Cybersecurity and data governance kind of almost go hand in hand these days with AI, and super, super important to get right, especially from the onset. A lot of time, sometimes we've done a project and then halfway through realize, I actually probably need to improve some of data governance policies and procedures. So those are kind of 5 things that you can reach out to us for if you think you're deficient in any one of those. More than happy to at least have a discussion. So yeah, and then let's get stuck in the questions. We have a couple, so if I might just read these out, Jaeden, and see how you would answer them. I really like the first one. This is from Abdul, because I know we've got a lot of accounting practicing clients, and this is specific to accounting practices. So he says, do you have any specific use cases for accounting practice firms which you've implemented using automation and/or AI agents for repetitive tasks?
So a big one that we are working with a partner on at the moment is the business activity statement automations. So quite often there is really large PDFs that essentially we need to pull all the figures out of and put into a spreadsheet so that it can actually go off to the accountant. And that's probably the biggest one at the moment that we are seeing. And I suppose you could take that idea and apply it to a lot of other use cases in that particular industry. Taking information out of PDFs and getting them into systems so that they can actually be interacted with and used and reported on properly. That would be the biggest one. Oh, you're still muted, John.
My mouse is not working. Okay, another one just following on from that question. Let me just bring it up now. Is it possible to extract data from different sources such as Xero, ATO, Now Infinity, Class, etc., to automate some of these tasks? So I think he's talking about like sort of SaaS products and like extracting data from them to then automate other things internally.
Yeah, I mean, it is going to. There's a lot of I suppose possibilities around that. We need to take into account security. Obviously, it's going to depend on security policies, where that data has to come from and where it can come from and where it can go. It is possible to extract from different sources. Xero is an easy-ish one. So there's generally connectors built for Xero ready to go with Power Automate. The ATO is a little bit more difficult. It really just depends on the platform. There are also options with the Power Platform to utilize computer use, and even Copilot to a degree can do this, where it can interact with a web browser session and perform the clicks and the input from a keyboard to actually source the information and then pass that off to a workflow that can do the rest. So yeah, there are a lot of options to kind of cover that.
I think that answers his third question, which is like what tools do we use, Power BI, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, it really depends on each client, to be honest. I mean, there's some platforms that we're very familiar with that we use internally that wouldn't be appropriate for other clients, and vice versa. So I think that's more of a scoping question, really, once a program works has been undertaken. It's one of the first things we talk about. But yeah, the tool is just a means to an end, really, isn't it? It's more just, is it secure?
That's right. We try and stay fairly agnostic to tools. Obviously, we have the main ones that we use, but we can work within others.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, perfect. Now, kind of a couple other questions. Please, if there's no bad question, I know I'm sort of new to a lot of these things as well. So if you have any really basic questions, please shove them in the Q&A. I'm just going to go through a bit of a list that Casey has got from that she was emailed as well. What are your top 3 recommendations for automations a standard non-tech professional team could start with? So let's just say a pretty sort of untechnical team the top three? I know you mentioned one before. Off the top of your head, is there any other ones that you missed? Or
actually, a really good starting point is something called workflows in Copilot. So if you have access to the M365 Copilot, the licensed version, you can actually start to build out your own small automations that run on a trigger, essentially. Things like you can have a trigger at the end of the day to go back through your inbox, identify any emails of high priority, anything that's come from managers and things like that, and kind of create a Teams message that comes to you that prioritizes what you need to respond to the next day. Things like that can be done with the Workflows app in Copilot, and it's quite handy.
But just out of the box, like just a real configure
just out of the box, yeah.
Existing software. Okay, cool. And then I also heard a reversal of that is like a bit of a whip summary. So, hey, these are the tasks that I got done this week based on the things that you've responded to that get sent to your higher up. Something like that is like super powerful, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And really, really easy to do with that app. So you use your natural language through the chat platform that is Copilot, and it will help you build that out.
Great. Okay, we've got another one here for teams, tech or AI experts. What's the best way to identify small repetitive tasks that save only 5 minutes a day, but are worth automating first? So kind of an iteration on the first question, but maybe something that's like saves a small amount. You mentioned before, like start small with something that saves only a couple of minutes a day. Like, is that the same things we're talking about here, or are there different things you'd add to that list?
They're pretty much the same thing. So if you know that you're about to undertake this work, track your daily tasks for 2 to 3 days and identify the repetitive, the low thinking tasks, copy paste, formatting, chasing info, taking this information, putting it there, that kind of thing. And note how long it takes you to do it as well.
Okay, we have a really good question here around the blockers. So what prevents a successful automation sort of taking place? Are there human, political, technical barriers in place? Like from your experience, what do you see as the sort of main preventers of a really successful automation implementation program?
Generally, it's going to be security.
Okay.
Like I said, we can't just take that down to create an automation. We have to work within the bounds. There are, in some instances, exceptions that can be made, but that is a process. And depending on how much security has been put in place for an organization, that can take a long time, or it can be easy. Yeah.
Okay, great. So that sort of comes back to data governance and maybe some of the restrictions on, like, let's say there's a platform you want to take data around and put here, and they don't have, a secure sort of way to do that, then you can't really do that, can you, legally?
It also goes the other way, though, as well. Once you're finished with an automation, you may actually sit down and go, oh, wow, we need to secure some of these platforms better, because look how easy this was for this automation.
That's a good point, actually. So we can actually highlight security exploits at the same time. Yeah, great. Okay, well, I like that. So I really like that. Again, any more questions here? Automations work around client. Okay, we kind of mentioned how do automations work around data that's really sensitive and confidential. What's your sort of general advice there?
So obviously, wherever possible, the systems that we like to leverage will be backed by the Microsoft Purview and data loss prevention policies and things like that. So wherever possible, we like to lean on that, and that can kind of help keep things in picture. So we've got full audit logs front to back of where things are going and what's happening with it. That's probably the recommendation there. There are a lot of systems that work with Microsoft, so you get most of the Microsoft functionality around that, and then have their own security and auditing and things like that. So it really it still depends on what needs to be done as well.
Okay, great. I think that's most of the end of the questions, unless anyone still on here has some more that they want to. Oh, hang on. Another one just came through. Just give me a second. Again, from Abdul. He's got lots of questions. How do you provide the service to identify the potential repetitive tasks within an organization which can be automated? Okay, so here it's around like, if you're going to automate something, how do you figure out what it is the most repetitive tasks? So it's a bit more of a discovery sort of thing. I know there's there's companies right now that are like putting almost like spyware on computers, monitoring what staff do, and then sort of figure out what is the most repetitive task, and they use that as a data point. But what's the way of identifying those in the first place? Is it interviewing staff individually, or how do you go about doing that?
So we would typically do this as part of the I wouldn't say we do it as part of it, but it actually naturally occurs as part of the Copilot Quick Start. So that's the adoption program for Copilot to get it actually utilized within an organization. Quite often when you're working through that particular piece, people are coming up with things naturally. Can Copilot do this? Can Copilot do that? And it's quite often a case of, well, it can't, but that is a really good idea for an automation, or it can, but an automation would be better. So they're the type of things we definitely we can offer a service to help identify that, and we would essentially have a round table of ambassadors that from different areas of the business, so that we can start to identify where those savings can take place.
Yeah, so it's a combination of them naturally coming out in discussions, and the program works. Yeah, I mean, basically, people tell us they're like, "I hate doing this every day." Like, this is the thing. I think people saying, "Automation is getting rid of my job." No. It's actually just going to free you up to do more of the things you prefer doing, and less of the mundane things that everybody hates doing. So I think generally there's less resistance from what I found when it comes to people just suggesting, "Hey, can you automate this for me?" I know that happens internally at Centurion, so that's really good. We've got a couple of things. We might just conscious of time. There's some really cool things I want to update you on. You will get an email from us as well. So again, please check your junk mail folders. You've already been emailed from us. If you enjoyed this session, please give us a review on Google. Can you do that right now? That'd be really cool. I know Casey's trying to get our Google reviews up because it's something that we haven't been doing as much. So if you enjoyed the session and you like us, please scan that code. I'll give you another minute or two. But also, we've got some really interesting things coming up that you may want to attend. Again, a lot of our team is mostly based in Brisbane, a couple of Melbourne, Sydney, Fiji, everywhere else, really. But we do a lot of local events in Brisbane, Sydney, mostly at the minute. Some planned for Melbourne. So on the next slide, we have some things that are coming up, I think. Well, yes. Anyway, I'll just tell you about them. But we have on May 15th, if you're in Brisbane, we have a general meetup in the CBD after work. So that's Thursday, May 15th. Anyone from any organization, whether in the industry or not, it'll be a mixer of our clients, partners, and everybody else within our network. So feel free to come by and have some snacks and drinks on us as well. May 15th, a Thursday in Brisbane. And again, please check your emails because we will be alerting you to the next webinars, some events that we got planned in Sydney and Melbourne coming up as well in the next month or two. So anything else I've missed here? We've got a couple more things here. Friday, Chris says Friday. Casey, I might just get you to... Oh, sorry, it's Friday, May 15th. Yeah, sorry, not Thursday, Friday, May 15th. Thanks for the correction there, Chris. Appreciate that. So that's next month, coming up in 2 weeks' time. And yeah, I just hope you enjoyed the webinar. There's some links there in the chat that in the chat thing at the top that Casey's been putting in case you need to look at those before you leave today. But again, thanks for all the questions. And I know this is really hard when we're doing this automation webinar. We're like, what do we show? What do we don't show? There's things that, confidential that we're not allowed to show that are really cool that we can't talk about. But we just thought we would run you through some of the sort of top 5 use cases and give you an idea about how this all works in the back end. But again, it is kind of technical. So yeah, probably do reach out if you're serious about doing this for your organization. The benefits are huge, and we're tracking the hours saved, which superiors, the board and executives really like to see, especially so you're kind of getting AI and automation sometimes in the same package, so you're ticking lots of boxes there. So it's a pretty easy sell within an organization. And again, if you get onto this now, as a trend, you probably see in the future, everything is AI and automation. So you can kind of champion that cause with the organization and use that to better your career. I don't think anyone sort of loses out of this. So hopefully let's raise some interesting things. There's some contact details there. We're an email away, a phone call away. Yeah, thanks, Abdul. Yes, I'll let you know in Sydney. So check your emails. We were just there last month at Tank Street Labs in Martin Place, talking about AI and agents with some legal people. So definitely keep in touch and check your inboxes. So without further ado, have I missed anything out there, Jaeden or Casey? No, perfect. Okay. Enjoy the rest of your day, everyone. Thanks again, Jaeden, for your time. Really appreciate it. I know you're very busy. Thanks, Casey, for helping triage some of the questions, and Chris for your support as well. Thanks, Sandra. Okay, really enjoy. I've seen some familiar faces here again, so I'll let you go. Have a good day, and I'll see you next time.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.